Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel for episode 3 of Welcome to the Dark Sun. We'll say also known as the one where we screw a bunch of people over. I think I mentioned it in the last episode, but all our characters in Dark Sun have questionable morals, so that puts us in interesting situations. Whereas when we were in Planescape before and our characters would try to negotiate our way out of conflict, this time we just kind of kill everybody or do whatever works to screw everyone over. It's really quite interesting. Now I know you're wondering if anybody died this time, and I will let you know that we got away with no deaths. Despite what we went up against, we actually came out pretty well, which was a win, because when everybody was dying, it just sucked. Actually, I only cared that I died. If everybody else died, I'm fine with that too, but I'm sad when I die. First thing we did when we started our session is we went and we sold some of the stuff that we had acquired. And interesting little asterisks that I'll throw in here is we had a heavy bamboo crossbow with some bolts, and it was decided that nobody would take it and we would sell it. And this will come back later on. So once we sold everything that we had, which gave us about 5 silver pieces, we decided to go back to Haka, the thri-kreen, and see what other quests he had. He still had escorting the slave caravan, which was something I didn't want to do because I figured it would go terribly wrong. And also Nibbles was dead set on letting them go, which would cause stuff to go wrong later on. You can't do that without consequences. The second quest, which was a new quest, was to deliver a package for Baladan to the Tyrian iron mines where we had been the session before. If only those two things had lined up, we could have done them both. We decided to take that quest because it seemed like the better of the two options, and so we went over to visit Baladan. And Baladan was a Mull, I believe, who was a slave in the mines. They managed to buy his way out, and then he set up some pretty sweet digs in the city of Tyr. He had a package that he wanted us to deliver to the Tyrian mines, which was something wrapped up in cotton. He said, "Can you deliver this to my friend Rinson? Please don't open it. I will know if you opened it. When you come back, you get 2 gold pieces." And 2 gold pieces in Athos is pretty good payment, because we've been getting paid in like ceramic pieces, so this was definitely a good payment. We decided to take it, obviously. We've been to the Tyrian mines before, we know the way. It'll take us a little bit longer because we didn't have a caravan to ride on, but psh, we got this. We picked up any supplies we needed, and we grabbed some extra water. I found some rations for super cheap, which I was very suspicious of for good reason, but until I needed to use them wasn't really a problem, and we headed out on the road. We were barely along our way when we came across a flaming dust devil coming up the path at us. Not the thing you want to see coming down at you in the desert, so I did the rational thing and I ran off the path and ostriched into the sand, because that seems like a good thing to do. Vashti decided to stand her ground. Last video, I know I kept referring to Vashti as a guy, but it's because a guy plays Vashti, but Vashti is a girl. You need to remember this. It gets a little bit hard when people play different genders, I find. Bardock the druid decided, hey, I'm just going to create water over top of this to kind of mellow it down a bit, and Nibbles had the ability to create mist, so she's like, I gotcha, I'll help you out. Everyone made their dex saves, which was great, so we only took a little bit of damage from this guy. We then rested for the night. Nothing happened overnight, which is always nice. And in the morning we continued on our way for a while until we came across a druid dwarf who was just chilling on the side of the road. He appeared out of nowhere, so he must have been really good at hiding. In fact, later on, both Nibbles and my character, Salentithius, tried to find this druid by just rolling and like flailing arms, and we couldn't. So good job, druid, on your hiding skills. He told us that there was a hive of pulp bees in the area that were really messing up everything and screwing with creatures, and asked us to go take care of them. Also, he kindly told us that he had 2 cure poisons readily available. So that's what you want to hear before you go into battle. We did decide to go though, because what can go wrong with 2-foot-tall giant bees? Nothing, right? It was a pretty good fight, all things considered. There were 4 of us and 3 of them. I didn't mention it, but only our 4 core players were here for this session, so that was nice because the session did go a bit faster. And so with the exception of Vashti almost dying, we were all pretty alright. We all needed a little bit of HP near the end, but the druid was able to help us out. Plus, I think Vashti and Bardock both had healing spells, so that was nice. One interesting thing that did come up, though, is how Bardock isn't the most well-rounded character. He's a druid, and he's got quite a bit of magic. He has a mace, which he never decides to use, and a lot of the magic spells, especially if they're ranged, only do like cones or areas. So if we're in there fighting these bad guys, Bardock doesn't want to shoot his spells off because he's gonna hit us. So kind of not the most well-rounded. And this is that situation where that heavy bamboo crossbow would have been helpful, which we tried to get Bardock to take. But that's fine. I'm sure down the road, eventually, he will get an actual ranged weapon instead of just the ranged spell attacks. I hope. Unfortunately, in the midst of this fight, when Nibbles got attacked, her backpack got ripped open and the pipe fell out and onto the sand and the wrapping came undone. And so when the fight was over, she went to pick it up and she was trying to get all the sand out of it, and all of a sudden it started to smoke pretty badly. And that's when an afridi popped out. And he wasn't very happy that he had been enslaved. He asked who let him out. I believe his exact words were, "Who dare release me?" And I wasn't having that, so I blamed the bees, which was kind of true. But it turns out that he didn't really hate us, but if given the chance, I think he would have tried to kill us. Fortunately, Nibbles had the pipe, so she was kind of a little bit in control of him. Basically, at this point, we tried to figure out the best way to get out of the situation without all of us dying or becoming slaves, because apparently he came from the city of Brass to Athos to collect slaves, and then one of the sorcerer kings had put him in the pipe. And somewhere along the line, Baladin had obviously got this pipe, and that's probably how he got himself free from slavery, and then he was gonna send it to his buddy so his buddy could do the same. All Bardock cared about was getting the 2 gold pieces that we were promised, and other than that, he didn't really care what we did with the afridi. Some of us, though, were concerned that if we let the afridi go, he might kill us, enslave us, or let Baladin know what we had done. So we solved that problem. We said, we'll let you go, no problem. We would just like you to not kill us, not enslave us, and for your troubles and everything you've been through, go take Baladin as one of your slaves. And also give us 2 GP. Bardock was very adamant about these 2 GP. Nibbles wanted a little bit more money, but she decided that she would go steal a rug from Baladin's house after he was gone, so that was the plan. She really wanted this rug. With that, we let the afridi go. We didn't die, all was well, and we decided, hey, let's go back to the city of Tyr because we're good now. A little bit into our way back to the city of Tyr, we came across some cacti. And if you remember from our first session, we ran into a hunting cactus, and that sucked. This was about the point that I decided that one of Salentithius's flaws would be that he's mistrusting of cacti. And so when Bardock and Nibbles went to go check it out, I just went the other way. Every time I see cacti now, I'm just going the other way. Bardock lost some armor, got a cactus attached to him, but we took them out and we even managed to collect one of the cacti because Bardock the Druid is really into agriculture and that kind of stuff. So he stuffed it in his glove and just kind of hoped for the best. We continued on our way a little bit longer and then it was time to rest for the night. Then that night, in the final watch, so just before morning, something approached the camp. It was a Vergala. I was asleep and Bardock was asleep, but fortunately Vashti and Nibbles were on watch together, so they were able to alert us and kind of start the attack. Somehow, despite the fact that Bardock was asleep, he ended up rolling first for initiative, and he decided to use a sand knife, and it didn't go the best, but we joked that he was just like some grumpy old man. He like woke up and he's like, "What's that?" and like threw off the sand knife. It was a pretty quick fight because there were only one of them and we're getting better at our characters. But to end it off, Vashti did what she does best and she grappled the Vergala. We started back on our way to the city of Tyr. It was our last day of our trek because we obviously didn't get to the Tyrian mines because what's the point? We didn't have the package to deliver. And off in the distance, we saw a yellow hunting cactus and we just kept going because we don't mess with cacti. We just don't. When we got back to the city of Tyr, there was smoke suspiciously rising from where Baladin lived, and so we went over to check it out. And sure enough, his place was on fire. The Templar were trying to put it out, but it was a write-off, and so we didn't get to steal that rug that we wanted. And because there were so many Templar there, we just kind of turned around and went back to our place. Time to rest for the night. In the morning though, we all decided to get some stuff done, so Bardock and Vashti went to go get some piecemeal armor. I went to go see if I could source out some magic fruit from somewhere, and Nibbles went off to see if she could buy her rug. On her quest for a rug though, she found a bunch of candy, so she bought 10 pounds of candy. After getting the candy, Nibbles found a really luxe looking rug, so she bought that, loaded her candy on it, and dragged it back to our house. And it's obviously going to be the most expensive thing in our house, because our house definitely makes it look like we're poverty stricken. Because we kind of are. I went into Shadow Square, and down a back alley I found a thri-kreen named Khalid. I asked if he was a DJ. He was not. But he was into selling things, which was what I was looking for. And I was able to pick up a Githka from him, which is like the thri-kreen's preferred weapon. And while I don't have proficiency yet, when I hit level 5, I will have it, so that'll be great. I asked him about magic fruit, and he can get me magic fruit, but it was a little pricey for my blood, so I'll just keep him in mind and come back later. I did want to build a good rapport with him though, so I told him about these rations that I got for super cheap. I'd only bought 3 of them, just in case something was wrong with them, and when we went out into the desert, I decided to try one. Well, the reason that it was so cheap was because it was preserved with salt. So the second I ate it, I had to drink water, and considering Athos, water is kind of a huge commodity, not the greatest ration. So I passed along to Khalid to let all our thri-kreen brethren know to not buy the rations, and if there's someone they didn't like that was going out into the desert, to let them know to buy the rations. After we all finished our various different tasks, we met up and we headed back to Hakka to see if he had any more quests. And he did. The slave caravan quest had disappeared, and it was because we may have mentioned something to the afridi about knowing where the slave caravan was. See, screwing everybody over. But there were 3 new quests. The first one was from a half-elf Templar named Meridak, and he wanted somebody to take care of a monster that was terrorizing the Elven market at night. Basically, bodies were showing up with slashes in them, nobody knew what it was. The second one was for a thri-kreen named Hayban, and he wanted us to go harvest some poison from some giant scorpions, which doesn't sound super appealing. And the third one was a request for a team of gladiators to go fight in the stadium. I was very much against the gladiator challenge because I figured it was just an easy way to walk into our deaths. Most of us didn't really want to do the scorpion one at the time because we had to go somewhere, so it kind of fell to taking care of the monster in the Elven Square. Hakka kindly offered to let us use his stall when it was night to hide, assuming we didn't break it, which we weren't planning on doing. So we went for dinner and then we came back and we hid in his stall. Bardock transformed himself into a spider, which is super creepy, and why would you ever want to be a spider? But it was a really easy way for him to hide in plain sight. After waiting for a little bit, we could start to hear these slow, creepy, shuffling footsteps, and then suddenly we could hear it sniffing really close to us. And my passive perception isn't the greatest, so I couldn't see him, so I just stood up and cast Burning Hands in the general direction of whatever was sniffing, and I hit this monster. We started attacking it kind of with everything we could. Bardock tried to hold person, didn't work. Vashti tried to grapple it, didn't work, because it had immunities to these things. Finally, Nibbles did an Arcana check, and it turned out it was an invisible stalker. And then, as we were getting him down pretty low, a door opens and a little elven girl comes out, and she says, "Please stop hurting my imaginary friend." That's heartbreaking. My first thought was maybe this monster's not the one that's responsible for these deaths. Maybe there's something else, and this is just her imaginary friend who isn't actually imaginary. Everybody else kind of went to, is this little girl real or fake? Is the monster creating her? We should kill her. So Bardock took his mace for like the first time ever and hit the little girl over the head. Didn't kill her, knocked her out. Real little girl. We took the monster out, and then I went and woke up the little girl, and she was really upset that her imaginary friend was gone. She was like, he just gets hungry sometime. And then Bardock called her a terrible person and offered to give her his cactus, which would drain her life. He's mean. We managed to stop that from happening, and then we headed back towards our house. And when we got back to the Havens, Meridak was waiting for us, and he was the guy who had assigned the quest. And he said, "I heard a commotion in the Elven market. I figured that was you guys. That's great that you took care of him." And then he says he's gonna take all the credit for himself. And I was like, that's fine, dude. I watched you kill him, because I don't want trouble. But he wanted trouble. So he pulled out his knife, and we got into a fight. Which I would say is ill-advised, considering he's a Templar. But as long as you kill him, it's okay, right? I intentionally made sure not to use magic in this fight just in case we didn't kill him and he survived, or if somebody saw us, because using magic is bad. But Bardock managed to get a hold person on this guy, so everything we did was a crit, so we took care of him pretty quickly. And once he was dead, he had some money, which was great, and he also had his steel blade. Granted, it's branded with the Templar symbol, but we can probably work our way around that, and Vashti took it. And then comes the next big problem. We killed a Templar. How do we get rid of the body? Bardock said he was going to create water to wash the water away from the cobblestones, which was great, and then he thought about bringing the body back to our house and just moving earth enough times to bury it. But I had a slightly better idea. There was a monster running around the Elven market. No one knows if it's alive or dead. Meridak was supposed to take care of it. Let's just dump his body there. And so here's where Nibbles and her obsession with getting a rug came in super handy. Bardock transformed into a beast of burden. We rolled up Meridak in the rug, threw it on top of Bardock's back, and went and dropped the body off in the Elven market with no one the wiser. Which I thought was a pretty smart way to deal with that problem. We'll still have to deal with the issue that Vashti has a Templar blade, but overall, I think we're good. And that was the end of our session. It was actually a really good session. It was really quite enjoyable. But also, we leveled up to level 4 in the midst of that session. I think after our first fight, because we were only 50 XP off to begin the night. So we had an option of increasing our ability score or of taking a feat. Now this is only the second campaign I've played, but in Planescape we didn't play with feats. So for me it was really easy to just take the ability score increase, especially because it pushed my con and my dex up a level each. The other 3, however, are seasoned D&D players, so they've played quite a bit, and they all decided to take feats. Bardock took Observant, which puts his passive perception up to a ridiculous 20. And I'm sure it does other things, but I didn't read it. And then both Vashti and Nibbles took Lucky, which gives them the ability to basically super advantage to get rid of their disadvantage. Also, they can say I'm lucky and roll a dice and switch out the attacker's roll with theirs if they want to. Obviously, if they roll a 20, they're not going to switch that out, but if they roll a 5, better chance of them not getting hit. I know there's a few other stipulations with that, but I'm not 100% clear on them. And because we leveled up pretty early in the session, we're already well on our way to the next level, which is pretty great. The longer you survive in Dark Sun, the more XP you get, then you get to level up, and then you have a better chance of surviving in Dark Sun. Things are going well so far. But that's it for today. If you want to check out the other 2 episodes, I'm going to link them in the down bar below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more, feel free to subscribe. I am uploading every Sunday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.